Hello, my friends. Welcome to Quality Sewing and Vacuum Sew Fun Live today. Here, we want to welcome you. Gail and Lily have done 29 classes already this whole month at 10 stores. And this is the accumulation of it all. We are so grateful that you have joined us today. Don't forget that today, any of the products that you see that are showcased are 20% off. And you'll want to comment down below and just say hi. Or if you have questions, go ahead and put that on there. And when you do, your name is going to be entered into a contest for 2 door prizes today. And we want to let you know as well that the sale for the 20% off will go until Thursday, April 6th. We have a great presentation that Gail's going to put on, and it's going to be all about panels. So with no further ado, I'm going to turn the time over to Gail.
Thank you, Andrea. So as she said, we're Quality Sewing and Vacuum, and if you're in the Puget Sound area, we have 10 stores you can go into in person or check us out on our website, and let's get rolling. So unfortunately, Lily couldn't be here today with us, but I'm going to share all of the fun stuff that she made as well. So as you can see, we have panels, and more panels in our samples today. So we're going to start out with the book that kicked it all off. And this is called Fun with Panels. And this is from Cindy McChesney. And this is a beautiful inspiration style book. You can learn all about different panels that are out in the world. Now, the way fabric works, you're probably not going to be able to find the exact panels that she's used because, you know, there's time involved in getting published books and stuff, but you might be lucky enough to get them. But you might have a panel at home that's very similar in style or in theme to one that she has, and you just need ideas on what to do with it. So you can go through here, learn all about panels, different sizes. Some of them are going to be a central panel that you will add stuff around the outside edge. And some of them are going to be panels that have smaller pictures that you can actually fit the images inside the block. So there are a couple of pages of idea blocks, and let's get looking at samples. All right. So that was Fun with Panels. And the first one I have over here is our Santa with polar bears. And I mentioned those blocks on page 34. There are some different options. So Lily put this quilt together using a lot of those different blocks that she surrounded her central panel with. And these are what's called a 4x4 block. So there's 4 different sections in each block. And she just did a sampler style. So she's got lots of different options going around there. Of course, everybody wants to see the back. And it's been quilted with snowflakes. And then I'm going to move up here to the cats. And the cats are a little bit smaller panel. So these are more of a 10 by 10 inch size. And the item here is a table runner. So some of my cats are hanging upside down because the person sitting across from the table from you wants to be able to see their cats right side up. So I have some half square triangle blocks that finish out this piece. And this was quilted with one of those edge-to-edge quilt patterns in our top-of-the-line sewing machines, either a XP3, a Brother, or a Babylock Solaris have that feature. And then we have the whale. And I'm going to talk a lot about the whale here in a minute and kind of the different elements of this one. So I'm going to put a pause on this one for just a second. We'll swing back in just a moment. And then over here, we have the fish. So this is a panel called Hooked on Fish. Again, the items are a little bit smaller. And then we have coordinates that were in that same fabric line. We have half square blocks. And we have other blocks pieced in. There's even a little sunrise or a sunset up in the corner, a sunburst. And then some fabrics on the back. So this had a stipple quilting. And I do have one more over here that is called a sliced panel. So it takes that central panel and one other fabric, and you slice and dice, and you can get something like this. So with that, I'm going to circle back to that whale. Now, the whale panel finishes right about here. I added the yellow to kind of set things off. I have really, really wide borders. These were 9-inch borders. The fabric matches the back. And I chose some different elements to put onto the quilt to kind of set things off, right? And I've got a variety of different ones. So I've got the stars, and those are pieced. I've got the stripes in the upper and lower corners. I had originally thought about doing piecing these in as well, but there's a lot of math to figure out, right? You've got the strip that's going to be there. How wide is that going to be? How wide is that one going to be? And how to piece them in. And I finally just gave up and decided to do applique. So it's the easiest way. So I've taken my fabric, which happened to be a navy 1-inch stripe. I just cut 1-inch strips. I put steam-a-seam on the back. It's a paperback fusible web. And then I ironed them on and then zigzagged around the outside edge with a very, very narrow, open zigzag to hold them all down. So that was the easiest thing I could come up with. I also have a few shells that are appliqued down in the bottom corner to give it another little bit different look. So I have a fabric that has those shells printed on it that I was able to use to just cut out and iron on. So this one is quilted out with just a stipple. It is a ruler template work called Winding Ways. So it's one of my favorites. It goes really fast and it looks great. So let's talk about triangles, right? We have half square triangles in many of our projects. I even have another fun little half square triangle project right here. Of course, you got to add another little panel, right? I've got one there in the center. And then on the back, I've got one more. So the way this one was quilted kind of draws your eye away from the fact that there are a lot of little half square triangles in here. So anyway, how to make half square triangles, right? So there's many different ways, but we have an easy way. So I have a product called Triangles on a Roll. And Triangles on a Roll is a paper template. And these come just on a roll. They come in different sizes. So this one happens to be the 2-inch finished half square triangle. And the roll will make 800 of them. So you've got lots to work with. The roll looks like that. And then I've got the 3-inch size. And what they've done is they've done all the math for you. If you're doing 3-inch half square triangles, you've got 600 on this roll. So you're going to layer up your fabrics. And I'm going to put my dark fabric on the bottom. And I'm going to put my light fabric on the top. Now I chose to use this light blue fabric that's in my border so that once my stars are complete, then they kind of pop out. They look like they're floating. You don't really see a 2-color block sitting on top of a border. So I've got the dark on the bottom and I've got the light on top. And I have these fabrics right sides together. Now what they don't tell you in the instructions, a little tip, is you're going to put the light color fabric facing up next to the paper, right? It's still right sides together, but it's going to be on top. And then we're going to put the paper down. I'm going to put in a couple of pins. And I'm going to sew on the dotted lines, and I am going to cut on the solid lines. So every one of these triangles is going to make a half square triangle. So I'm going to run over and sew this up real quick because I didn't have one ready. Okay, I'm going to shorten the stitch length down to a 2.0 because I want this to be really, really short stitches. And I'm going to sew right along that dotted line. And I can just keep going. There's little arrows that tell you which direction to go. And I can just work my way down the fabric, turn around and go back the other way. So we're going to go down to here. This is going to get cut off later, so I don't care. I'm just going to sew in the border there. And we'll go back and we'll go this way. And we'll go back this direction down the other line. So the important part is to be accurate in your sewing. And then cutting your blocks apart. The more accurate you are cutting and sewing, the more accurate your block's going to be. All right, so I would keep going if I were doing a whole bunch, but all I need right now is just one little set. So we're going to go cut this one out and show you what we get. All right, now any straight edge ruler will work. I am going to trim along the solid lines. And take the edge off over here. There we go. Now I need to slice down the middle. Now notice this was my grain line of my fabric. This is on the bias, right? So when I cut this and have this paper sewn on, I'm going to go one step further that they don't mention in the directions. And I'm going to press these while I still have the paper on the triangles, right? That's going to keep this seam from getting stretched out. So that's why I put the light color next to the paper and the dark color on top when I come over here to the ironing board. First, I'm going to press this the same way I sewed it. That's going to set my seam. And then I can just flip up this fabric, and the nose of my iron is going to give me a nice crease on that seam. And I've pressed to the dark side, and nothing is stretching because it's still got the paper attached. So I'll do this one real quick. And then I've got a little trick for removing the paper as well. So we did a real short stitch, right? That is to complete, make sure that my seam is very strong, but it also perforates the paper just a little bit more, so it makes it nice and easy to remove. So I'll iron up a whole stack of them. I'll take them, upstairs and sit in the chair and do this while I watch TV, right? This is the mindless part. So I'm going to take that paper, and instead of ripping from the edge, this part has been cut. So it is a little more tender. This is the strongest part of my seam because there's no breaks in the thread. So I'm going to put my thumbnail right next to that seam line and pull just like that, and it will remove the paper. I give it a little nudge with my thumbnail again, and the other side will come off as well. So I'm just going to do that again. Thumbnail on the line, pull the paper back, and it takes those papers right off. Very easy. Now I'm going to take just a little pair of scissors, and I'm going to trim off real quick these little dog ears so that I can remove those and remove bulk from the seam. So those are half square triangles. These were 2-inch finished. which means I need 2.5 inch cut. And so these are going to be precise. I don't have to do any more trimming. I am ready to put those into a project. So half square triangles and quarter square triangles have different seam allowances, right? When you regularly sew, then blocks, you have 1/4 inch that you have to add to your seam allowance. But when you go on the diagonal, you have to do all sorts of other math, right? So instead of having to figure all that out, the papers just help you. Now I can take these half square triangles one step further, and I can make quarter square triangles. So I'm going to lose a little bit of math, but we're going to trim them up later anyway. So I'm going to take these two and flip them over. So I've got a light against a dark and a dark against a light. And the reason we pressed to the dark side was so these are going opposite directions. They kind of nest there together. I'm going to draw a line from that corner to that corner. Sometimes I can even crease that. And then sew 1/4 inch this direction and 1/4 inch that direction. And after I've cut it down the middle, I'm going to end up with two, what they call quarter square triangles. So I've got colors going in both directions. So this is not going to be your perfect 2-inch finished quarter square triangle, but I can use that to make smaller sized projects. So if I take that quarter square triangle and my trim up ruler, then I can go much smaller. The trim up ruler has these nice marks right through here that bisect the block, and it has lots and lots of measurements on here. So I can do that at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or I can do them at 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, 5.5, or 6.5. So lots and lots of nice measurements for trimming down. So when I did the blocks up in the border, these two were the same size. I used a rather large sized triangles, but then I made my other stars get a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller. I just trimmed them down. I started with the same size that I sewed, and I just trimmed to make them tiny. So this is a 1-inch finished inside inch block. So this is a 3-inch from here to here. Now the next size down from that is very tiny. So this is 1/2 inch finished inside blue square. So to get that, I did not take little itty tiny bitty triangles and try to put them through my sewing machine, right? I sewed blocks like this, reasonable sized, and I trimmed them down to little blocks like that using my trim up ruler. So this is 1-inch cut, 1/2 inch finished. So I use that one line on there, and I trimmed that side, I flipped the block around, and I lined it up again and did the other side. After I've got 9 of these, I've got 4 that look like that, I've got a solid blue one, and I've got some solid light blue ones. Then I'm going to sew those together. And I always sew 1/4 inch, even when I'm going miniature. If I want to go back and trim it to 1/8 inch later, I can. So, next thing I want to share with you on this ruler, there are many, many, many rulers out on the market, and some have a coating on the back, some don't. We have a beautiful line of rulers that we sell here, the Quilters Select, that have this nice rubber finish on the back, and it just makes them not slide on your fabric. Well, not every ruler has that when it comes from the factory. So what we did is we took a product called No Slip Grip coating, called Grippy non-slip coating, and it's like a hairspray or a glue. You spray it on the back of the ruler, and it dries almost instantly. Makes it just a little bit opaque, but I have no problem seeing right through. And that is going to add that grippy coating to any ruler I have. You can also use it on glass and rugs and other things that, might slip around. I haven't tried the foot pedal on my sewing machine, but, it's worth a try. And keeps things from sliding. So just to illustrate that, this is the fabric that my little shells came from on the bottom of my quilt that I mentioned. I've got these little shells that I cut out. But many times we have fabric. Now the top of the ruler does not have any coating on it. And you put that down and it slides around, right? And it makes it hard to cut. But the bottom of this ruler has the coating on it. So when I flip it over and push, then it really, really grips the fabric. So that's a nice addition to any ruler that you already have. Okay, I've got one more thing to share about our borders, and we're going to go back over to the sewing machine. And I am going to sew. You can stay here for just a second. Let me grab this. We are going to sew this into the border. So what I'm illustrating is how to get these stars pieced into the border with no math. Because I'm a no math kind of person, right? Make it easy. So the other items were appliqued, but those are sewn in. So I left my borders really, really wide. Remember I said 9-inch borders. I laid my block down on the table. This is before I have anything else done. And I laid my borders out next to this. I haven't sewn them on yet. And I've made sure I had extra on each end. Okay, now let's go over to the cutting board. So this is going to be my illustration of the border. All right. And I want to insert this block into the border, right? So first I got to figure out what angle I want this to sit at. And let's go for that angle right there. And all I need to do is slice down the edges of the block, right? I'm going to slice there. I'm just going to leave that right there. And I'm going to slice down this side and leave that right there. Okay? Now I would have to go back and mark this with a pencil, or a friction pen would be great because it needs to come out later. I'm going to do it without a mark right now. But this would be that line right across there. I need a seam allowance for this piece, and I need a seam allowance for this piece. So I'm going to give myself about 1 inch. And I'm going to make a slice. Okay. And I'm going to do the same thing from the other direction. It was sitting here. I'm going to give myself a little extra. And I'll slice that right there. Now, this piece is going to get removed. And I'm going to replace it with that block. And then I'm going to start sewing things back together. So this piece goes to this, and this piece goes to this. Grab myself a couple of pins. So we'll put one there, and we'll put one there. And I'm going to slide right in front of you. Okay. So I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, which means I'm going to go over to the machine and choose that wonderful little stitch that has a P on it, because that's going to move my needle over a 1/4 inch away from the edge of my foot. I don't have to have my 1/4 inch foot. I do love my 1/4 inch foot, but if I don't happen to have it handy, I am still stitching a 1/4 inch away from the edge of that foot. All right, I'll go turn around and go the other way. Line that up. Now this is the Vesta, Baby Lock Vesta that I'm stitching on today, and it is a sewing and embroidery machine. All right, so now I have inserted that at an angle into that border, right? And I can put it right back down, and you can see how that's going to fit right back in there. And then I'm going to sew this to this and this to this. Now I have a little bit of extra, so I'm going to try to make them as even as possible. Actually, yeah, let's go this way. Now, if you were at home, you'd go to the ironing board and press it open and all that, or press it to one side and all of that good stuff. But we're just going to run through this real quick. And then I would try my best to get this even so that that line continues on that line. So we'll see how we did. And we'll eyeball it here. So this is what that seam looks like from the other side. I had this on the bottom before with the block, but it doesn't matter which way you sew as long as your seams all get going the right direction. Right. And then you're going to press that out. Oh, looks like we got off just a little bit. But you would have this border sitting a little bit higher on that block so that these line up. And I always do things, you know, a little bit bigger. You can always trim down later. You can't make it bigger, but you can make it smaller. So if I really wanted to, I could just trim all of that off. But if this and this were lined up a little bit better, then all you would have to trim is a little bit off this center block. But that has added that block into a border without doing any math. So we had so much fun with panels that we didn't let it stop at quilts, right? So we have decided to put panels on just about everything. So next, I have panels on these lovely bags, right? These are the Rockport Carryall. This is the pattern right here. And this is two different sizes in this pattern. We have a large and we have a medium. And Lily took a panel, the same whale panel, and she put it on her tote bag. So the top half of the whale panel is here, and the bottom half of the whale panel is here. This whole bag is built with an individual sidewall. So, you know, the side of the bag is a big, long strip, and it's done flat, and it is one piece of fabric on the front and one piece of fabric on the back for the lining. And then you channel quilt it. You have some foam type product inside. There's different brands. We have Bosel Interform. We have Annie's Soft and Stable. But you're going to need 3 layers of that foam. And you stack it up with your fabrics. And then you channel quilt it from top to bottom. Then you're going to finish off the edges with binding. Here is another one. This is the medium size. So I've got binding all the way around all the edges on that big, long, rectangular piece. And then I'm going to create a bottom. And so my bottom has a black vinyl with feet on it and the same copper fabric on the inside for the lining. Now, the bottoms are built with this Bosel product. It's called Craftex Plus. Now, this is a very, very stiff interfacing. It is fusible on both sides. And that's going to help us as we create the bag. Now, there's 2 pieces in here, and you need both pieces for one bag. So it is pre-cut to the size for the large bag. And I don't know that I showed you the pretty mermaid vinyl on the bottom of this one. I think it's a mermaid color. But If you're making the large bag, you're already pre-cut. You don't have to do anything else. If you're doing the medium bag, you're just going to trim it down a little bit to give you the shape of this bag right here. So after I have created my sidewalls, I'm going to finish off the bottom. And I have a little miniature of this. So I'm going to use both pieces of this, and I'm going to finish each of them individually, and then I'm going to sew them back together. So I'm going to iron my lining fabric onto one side, and I'm going to iron my bottom fabric onto the other side. Okay, trim around the edge so that they're even. And then I'm going to add a binding. So all I need is a single strip of straight, I'm going to use a cross grain from Salvage to Salvage because it's got just a little bit of stretch. And I'm going to start on the sidewall, and I'm going to go around the corner all the way around to the end, right? And then I'm going to fold that to the inside, and this is fusible as well. So I can just iron it down like this. And I'm going to have finished side here. I do the same over here. And I've got a finished edge. And then I'm going to lay the two together and sew with a sewing machine, straight stitch all the way around the outside edge. Okay? Now, if you are putting feet on the bottom of your bag, you're going to want to do that before you sew these two pieces together, because you want the hardware from the feet. There's little prongs that open up to keep them in place. You want all that on the inside, right? So all this raw edge, ugly stuff is inside, and then it runs right through the straight edge of the sewing machine just beautifully. So to quilt this out, I used my Fluff Icon. Like I said, 3 layers of foam, 2 layers of fabric, and it went through just fine. So no problems there. I just like the look of putting a panel on this bag, right? It just makes the whole bag come to life. Now that we have a sidewall and a bottom, we are going to build the handles. So one more item for you. We have the Happy Handle Kit, and I apologize, I wrote my name across the title, but this is the Happy Handle Kit. Just look for the smiley face. And this comes with tubing. This is plastic tubing. It comes with stabilizer. And then I'm going to add fabric, right? So I'm going to make myself a fabric tube to cover up the interfacing. And these end up being this nice, firm handles. You get enough stuff in the package to make 2 handles 28 inches long, which is this long size. I made the short ones, so I have a little bit left over. I can even make them on a purse. So I'm going to have handles about that size left over, 2 of them, so I can have 2 projects in one. So once I create my fabric tube, and I've only got half of it here, but I'm going to create my fabric as long as my interfacing. I leave a little opening in the middle to turn it inside out. Now I have this seam right along the inside of that tube, right? And I did that by sewing the tube, leaving it open, folding it like this, ironing it, and then sewing across the ends. I trim them and I turn it inside out, right? I have a little turning tool that I'm going to use, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But we'll turn that tube inside out, and then we're going to put the interfacing in that fabric tube, right? So I do have a trick for that as well. So this is stiff enough interfacing that if I fold this in half and shove it in that tube, now this would be turned right side out, of course, but I have enough stiffness here to shove that all the way into the end, and then it'll just open itself back up again. I'm almost there. There we go. And it opens up flat. and I've stuffed that tube. So from here, and I have that interfacing all the way up to the end, I'm going to measure down. Now the instructions give you the size tube you need and the length that you leave down here at the end. But I'm going to leave myself a tab, and that's how I'm going to attach it to the bag. And then I'm going to fold the rest of this in half. And I'm going to backstitch right here and sew with a sewing machine, straight stitch as close to the edge as I can, all the way to the other end, minus that couple of inches. And that creates a casing that I'm eventually going to put this plastic tubing in to make it stiff. This part is the part that I'm going to sew onto the side of my bag. Now I'm going to put the handles on my sides before I sew the bottom on the bag. It just makes it a lot easier. And I'm going to wait and put the plastic tubing into that casing until the whole bag is done. It just leaves this nice and soft. So as much as I can leave stuff, flexible when I'm trying to sew, that's good. And then I can add the stability later. So my tubing ended right here. So the last step after I've got the handles on is to sew the bag bottom and the side wall together. So this is finished and this is finished. So I'm just going to take a needle and thread. This is the hand sewing part. A little bit heavier thread, a little bit heavier needle. A needle puller might be in order. And I'm just going to whip stitch. Grab a couple of threads down here and a couple of threads up here, of fabrics, and then just do a little stitch all the way around the outside edge. So whip stitch it together. But I think they make lovely, lovely totes. Okay, give that a little pin. And I'm going to unplug my iron. Okay, now I mentioned a turning tool, right? This is the Alex Anderson 4-in-1 tool. And this has 4 different items all in one handle. So I have the point turning end right here. I have like a wooden iron. If I did have a seam I needed to crease, like those seams over there, I can use this to push along that instead of my thumbnail. And then under this cap, I have a seam ripper. Under this cap, I have a stiletto. So lots of items all in one tool, and they've got a nice handle to hang on to, and it doesn't roll on the floor once you set it down on the table, which is a plus these days. So you can take it in your bag to go to retreat or for class, or just have one at home. You can even buy 2. So very, very handy Alex Anderson 4-in-1 tool. Okay, so what else did we put a panel on, right? We're still talking about panels, and we have the perfect panel jacket. This is, let me take this out of the saran so it doesn't reflect the light here so bad. There you go. So the perfect panel jacket is written by a woman in Anacortes, and she does the Indonesian batiks. And so she put together this pattern using one of these beautiful Indonesian batiks on the back of the jacket. You could have regular fabric. You could have an overall large-scale print fabric. There's just all sorts of things you can do with this. So we have, it's kind of a little bit longer style. We have long sleeves with cuffs. You can do the quilted version, the non-quilted version, the panel version, the not panel version. But there's also this sliced up front detail, which is really, really nice. And I'm going to show you my jackets here. So the pattern itself comes extra small to extra large. And it's a wonderful pattern. The jacket is great. It is a little bit of a drop shoulder, but takes the time to do a practice for size. Okay, I'll give you a heads up. She's a little generous with her measurements. I did my measurements and I thought I'd probably be about an extra large. I'm usually an extra large in most clothing. So I did not make a practice. I did my little dragon jacket here. So this is a panel that I appliqued to the back. And there's that stripe detail on the front. But this is my extra large jacket. I have satin lining on the inside. No batting on this one. But it's a little bit big. So an extra large might fit me and a friend. I don't know. So I teasingly say my husband's going to have a smoking jacket, right? So we've got that beautiful dragon on the back. But it does fit, you know, some of our customers. And if you need a little bit larger, it's going to accommodate. Again, the shoulders are down here, which is part of the pattern, but part of the size. You could pull those up just a little bit. But in truth, in her pattern, I'm actually a medium. So I like that. So Lily, my partner, made the jacket. She did not start with a panel. She did the quilted version. She started out with fabric and she made her own decorations, right? She took some strips of fabric and she has pieced them. Then she has added her alum decorations, which are flowers from her garden. She's done free motion quilting. She's done decorative stitching. She's put in stems and used a lot of this heavyweight thread I'm going to talk about here in a minute to put all this wonderful color in the bottom of the jacket here. So she has just really decorated it up. Now she did a batting version, and then we have the green and the blue over here. And all of these were done with our heavyweight thread on the serger. But she has quilted the front, quilted the back, left the sleeves unquilted, which I really like, and then quilted up the cuffs. So it doesn't make your sleeves quite so stiff. So this is a medium. And it fits me great. So I kind of like the fact that I'm a medium. Anyway, if you'd like to make a jacket, then yeah, this pattern is wonderful. It is easy to put together after you decide what size you are. All right, moving along. So we have a couple of other, they're books, but they're not really project style books. They're just little things to have around, right? This is the Pocket Guide to Stabilizer. This is a carry-along reference guide. If stabilizers confuse you and you want to know the different types, how to use them, toppers and bottom stabilizers, and wash away and cut away, and when to use them, when not to use them, and how to use them, then this is the book for you. So this is just small size, fits in your bag, and it's called the Pocket Guide to Stabilizers. So very, very handy. And then we have a project journal. So this has polka dot style inside lines. So you can write on them and keep your lines straight, or you can draw, and you can use this to note your projects that you've already made, maybe a picture and the fabrics you used or the sizes or anything you want to talk about, or maybe use it as a sketchbook on the items that you want to make in the future, or you can write your diary, you know, deep dark thoughts in here, whatever you want to use this part for. But the spine is a ruler, which I know is hard to translate here on the camera, so it's very shiny. Chula Pink likes everything bright and shiny. And then what you may or may not be able to see here is she has suspended glitter inside a gel on the front cover. So it's like the whole cover is alive. and you can just zen out, right? And play with the little glitter. So it's quite fun. I have a 12-year-old inner child, and she's happy. So if you have one of those as well, you can get a fun little glitter journal. Okay, so let's see, we have needles. Needles today are size 12. We have a top stitch variety, and we have an anti-glue, or they call this one a non-stick. So anytime you're using paperback fusible web and the spray glues and any of that in your projects, and you're having trouble with your needles getting all gummed up, these reduce that effect. So non-stick needles and top stitch needles just have a little bit bigger eye. Okay, and let's talk about embroidery. So this is a collection called Who Rescued Who by Shannon Roberts and OESD Scissor Tail Stitches. These are those chalkboard style embroidery designs. Give a quick look at the back. So there are 11 designs on here, and they are available in 2 different sizes. So the larger size is about 7.5 by 7.5, and then the smallers are about 5.5 by 5.5. So you need at least a 6 by 10 design hoop to accommodate those. Multi-format, and these come on a USB stick. So you're not dealing with the CDs anymore. So this is one of the designs. It says, "My kids have paws." So these are all going to be dog and cat and kind of rescue related. "I don't need therapy. I have a dog." I think is sweet. We also have, "I don't need therapy. I have a cat." Of course, I've gotten the comment, "I do need therapy because I have a cat." Or, "I don't need therapy, but my cat needs therapy." So whatever the case. That is just embroidered on fabric. I put some border fabrics around it and stapled it to a painting canvas. So makes a picture. And then I have "Love is wet noses, sloppy kisses, and wagging tails." So this is embroidered on another product we have called chalkboard fabric. And I've made a perpetual calendar out of this, meaning I can take chalk marker, and write and rewrite the dates in here. So it can be March, April, May. And the lines are stitched in, but all the other pink is a chalk. So this gives you a base for all sorts of things. It's a fabric, and as you can see, you can embroider on it. You can make bags and pillows and other things out of it. I got a customer tip, very cool idea. She said you make a grocery bag out of your chalkboard fabric. Now it could be a tote like this style, but then you write your shopping list on the outside of the bag, and you take it with you to the grocery store, right? And then you've always got your bag with you. So thank you very much for that tip. That was very cool. And then we have the towel to clean the dog feet, or cat, I guess. But this is the Rescued is my favorite breed. Now I have brought in addition to the design, the first thing I brought in was a square of a stitch just to make sure all the fur stayed flat, right? It's called a knockdown stitch, and it just gives you a foundation to stitch your design on so it doesn't get lost. And then I also created a little applique paw print for the top to make the towel actually able to hang. So I chopped up a bath towel, put a binding around it, and then added this topper to it. And then we have a t-shirt that says "Dog Mom." So really, really cute embroidery designs. So in addition to the ones I did, we have Beware of Dog Kisses, which is on the cover of the design pack. We have Beware of Wiggle Butts, because that's just too cute. And I worked hard so my cat can have a better life. And I work hard so my dog can have a better life. And Who Rescued Who is another design in and of itself. So wonderful collection from OESD. Okay, earlier I alluded to the heavyweight threads that Lily used to decorate her jacket. And we have a couple of other samples over here. Let's just take this whole thing over to the other table for just a moment. And these are a 12 weight cotton thread from Wonderfil called spaghetti thread. And spaghetti thread is going to give you that really bold look. Now, you're going to use this in either a very, very large sewing needle on your sewing machine, like a 16 or an 18, or you're going to use it in the bobbin on your sewing machine, or, because that's a technique called bobbin work, or you're going to use it in the lower looper or the upper looper on a overlock serger, or in the cover looper on a cover and chain stitch serger. So this was done with the cover and chain. So this is the part you see. The heavy, heavy thread is going to be placed in that cover chain looper, which ends up on the bottom of the project. So when you sew, you're going to put regular weight thread in the needles, and you're going to sew everything upside down. So this is the part I actually see. One thread is going to give you a chain stitch. Two threads close together are going to give you a narrow cover stitch, and two threads far apart are going to give you a wide cover stitch. Many cover stitch machines out there have the ability to have 3 needles, so you can have them close together or farther apart. You can actually put in all 3 needles too, get a different look. But you see this, you draw out your pattern or whatever on this side, and then when you're done, you flip it over, and there's the magic and all the pretty threads. So these come in a package of 8, and they come in 2 different colorways. We have the Brights, which is the coloring book, coloring box I got to play with. And then Lily got the Tropics. So this has the lime and the turquoise and a little bit lighter colors. Now, many of these are the light and the dark shade, right? So we've got a green and a green, we've got a blue and a blue, and then a purple and a purple. So I've also seen someone take both boxes, and they used the overlock part of the serger, and they put the light in the top and the dark in the bottom, and they did some really pretty 2-color stuff with it. So you've got both shades. So very nice. Now we have a book. Well, let's talk about the pattern first. So those threads were also used on these iPad tablet covers. They could be used for electronics. You could even line it with the Insulbright and use it for your ironing, curling iron. But they're just a way to make a bag. It's lined. These 2 are using the Annie's Soft and Stable foam, 1 layer, and then decorate the front. This is also done with that serger option. If you don't have one, you can use an embroidery design. You could use a fabric panel. You could use a quilt block, anything that you wanted to decorate it with. The pattern is written so that you can make this entire bag on a serger. If you have the cover chain capability, you can do the decorations as well. If you don't, there's other options. But you put in the zipper, you do the seams, you do everything on the serger. Now, if you don't have a serger, you can make the whole thing with a sewing machine as well. So your options are wide open for that. Okay. So those are the bag. And then the rest of these items are all done out of our last book, and that's called the Half Yard Spring Collection. So this is from Debbie Shore, and there are 40 different projects in this book. So we have bags and machine covers and aprons and pillows and just a ton of different projects. The bunnies. So these actually have measurements. So it tells you to cut out certain things and put them together and make a specific project. So all sorts of items in here, and a lot of them go fairly fast. So spring collection, we have the little turtle sewing kit, right? I'm still putting panels and stuff. We have our turtle. We have some coordinating fabrics. It's kind of a wonky log cabin. Again, I've got a little scrap of the Annie Soft and Stable in here, and inside is a little sewing kit. I've got my threads, and I've got my scissors and pins, and I am ready to go. Ready to travel. All right, then I have the paintbrush roll-up. Now this can be for paintbrushes, it can be for crayons, it can be for makeup brushes, it could be for knitting needles, crochet hooks, anything that you want to put in here. But Lily thought that this would be great for her paintbrushes. And you're going to need to wash out your paintbrushes on occasion, and they might be damp. So she has put a vinyl liner in here to keep the fabric clean when she's using it for her paintbrushes. So when you've got all your pockets, you just make your pockets different widths in order to accommodate whatever you're going to put in there. And then you're just going to roll it up. And you're going to use those ties to tie it off. And you're ready for travel. Okay, we have a serger cover. Now in there they have the instructions to make a cover for whatever machine you have, or maybe even it's a mixer or a blender. So you take the measurements that you measure on your item and you use those to create something to keep your item clean. So we've got a nice cover. She's embroidered that. It says her Imagined Serger. Pretty floral. That would brighten your day when you go in your sewing room and you've got flowers. So, and then we have Easter coming up because as we film this live, it is March. Yep, we're still in March. And so Easter's on its way. So we have bunnies. Here is the first little floppy-eared bunny. And the pattern for these is in there. Now, Lily has added a couple of things. She added a pocket. So how fun is that? You can stash a little secret in the pocket of your bunny. Easy to do. And then we've also added a face. So she has a top-of-the-line embroidery machine, which allows you to create your own embroidery right on the machine. So she drew her face out on a piece of paper. She scanned it in and created the embroidery to put on her bunnies. So we have a little bit more stabilizer in the ears on this bunny, but a fun bunny just the same, and a little pocket. And then we have a third bunny. So this one's even a little bit stiffer. You could put pipe cleaners, wire, anything you want in here to make the ears stand up. And again, a pocket. And oh, she left me a piece of chocolate. How sweet. Okay, we have a chicken also in the book. This is a doorstop. So he has beans down here in the body. So he's nice and heavy. And then stuffing up here. So it's a cute little chicken. It's a little bit heavier fabric. So he'll be nice and sturdy sitting there holding the door open. We have a cute little lion. Now I have a little grandson who will appreciate my little fuzzy lion. And he has a little face. His mouth is a zipper. And so it opens up. Roar! So you can put your crayons, you can put your cars, you can put whatever you want in there and hide them away for later. And then we have the box. So this is a fold-up, store-flat type box. So I've got some ties on here. And when I untie them, then I can have this fold flat. So I have a lining with fusible fleece, and then I had to add panels, right? So in the book, they have this as a solid fabric, but you know, what's the fun in that? So let's add some panels. So I have my fairy fabrics here to create sides for my box. Another piece of fusible fleece, quilt them together, bind it, and then I can fold these up, tie them off, and make my box. So if you had that chalkboard fabric, you could add that to these boxes as well. Just put a little piece right here. You could even make the whole front some chalkboard fabric, and then you could write on there what's inside the box. So lots of uses for that chalkboard fabric. Just got a couple more things, and then we will be done. So, prizes. You might want to do that now, or? Okay. So I've got 2 more items. We'll just cover those real quick, and then we will get to the prize part, right? So I have some pins and a magnetic pin cushion for your wrist. So these are called cool pins, and these are ABC 123 pins. But they also call them cool pins because they have a flat top, and the tops can actually be ironed. So let's give you the one in here. So I've got pins. They are long, they're sharp, and they have flat heads that are iron resistant, right? So they call them the cool pins. Now they also have a letter and a number on every pin, which means every I is an 8. So if I have a pattern that says cut out a bunch of triangles, these are going to be piece A, then I can mark those with a pin that has an A on it. And if I have, 10 blocks over here and I need a 10, then I can use the button or the pin that says 10 on it, right? To keep track of numbers and your different piece things. You've also got blocks and rows and columns and stuff, so you can use them for that. And because I have the grandkids, I thought I could make a cute little secret code, right? So I've got letters on one side and numbers on the other, and it's like a little cipher. So just have fun with them. When you're done with the pins, you can use them on the magnetic pin cushion. And the purple heart package matches the purple heart magnet. So I think it's kind of fun. So that's the slap band pin cushion and the ABC 123 cool pins. All right. So it doesn't look like I've had any questions from the viewers or the gallery. If you have questions, you can always leave them in the comments and we'll talk about those, or answer you, I should say. And then we have prizes. So if you are near one of our locations, you're just going to comment back and tell us which store you'd like to pick these up at. If not, then you can let us know how to get them to you. So Deborah Reiger, congratulations. You have a beautiful teal and gold jelly roll. And Sherry Anderson Alberts, you have won a wool applique heirlooms book. This has 15 projects for doing fall wool applique. Very cool. So thank you very much for joining me today, and I hope to see you in a store soon, and have a wonderful day.